Procuri Alexandria awakens a starry beginning. Close your eyes and let me take you to a night unlike any other. A night when the Mediterranean breeze carries the scent of papyrus and frankincense through narrow streets that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. It is the year 390, and Alexandria glows beneath a canopy of stars so brilliant they seem close enough to pluck from the heavens like jewels. You are standing on the harbor's edge, where the gentle lapping of waves against ancient stone creates a rhythm as old as time itself. The water stretches endlessly before you, dark as polished obsidian, reflecting fragments of starlight that dance and shimmer with each breath of wind. This is Alexandria, the jewel of the ancient world, where knowledge flows as freely as the Nile, and where tonight we will walk in the footsteps of a woman whose mind blazed brighter than the lighthouse that guards this very shore. Turn your gaze upward. Yes, there, where the Pharos of Alexandria rises like a titan from the harbor's mouth. 7 stories of gleaming marble and limestone reach toward the heavens, crowned by a bronze mirror that catches and amplifies the light of a great fire. For over 600 years, this wonder has guided ships safely home through treacherous waters, its beacon visible from 30 miles at sea. But tonight it serves another purpose. Tonight it reminds us that some lights are meant to illuminate not just the darkness around us, but the darkness within us. The lighthouse keeper tends his sacred flame high above, unaware that far below, in the scholarly quarter of the city, another kind of light burns just as steadily. In a modest house lined with scrolls and astronomical instruments, a young woman sits by her window, charting the movements of celestial bodies with the precision of a master craftsman and the wonder of a child seeing snow for the first time. Her name is Hypatia, and though you may not yet know her story, the stars certainly do. Listen, can you hear the night sounds of Alexandria awakening to its evening rhythms? The distant call of merchants closing their stalls in the agora, their voices carrying tales of silk from China and spices from India. The soft shuffle of sandaled feet on worn cobblestones as scholars make their way to the great library, their arms heavy with texts that contain the accumulated wisdom of centuries. The gentle creaking of ships at anchor, their masts swaying like tall reeds in the harbor breeze. This is a city where East meets West, where the philosophical traditions of Greece mingle with the ancient mysteries of Egypt, where Jewish scholars debate alongside Christian theologians and pagan philosophers. Alexandria is a crossroads, not just of trade routes, but of ideas, of possibilities, of dreams that dare to reach beyond the ordinary boundaries of human understanding. And in this extraordinary place, under these same stars that have watched over countless generations of seekers and dreamers, Hypatia has learned to see patterns that others miss. While most people look up at the night sky and see chaos, a random scattering of distant lights, she sees the elegant mathematics of celestial motion. She sees the poetry written in planetary orbits. She sees the divine geometry that underlies all creation. The harbor water laps more gently now, as if the sea itself is settling into evening's embrace. A fishing boat glides silently past, its single lantern creating a golden path across the dark water. The fisherman raises his hand in greeting to the lighthouse, a gesture so automatic it speaks of decades spent navigating these waters under the protective gaze of the Pharos. How many nights has this scene played out? How many generations have found comfort in the steady presence of that guiding light? And how many have paused, as you are pausing now, to marvel at the way human ingenuity can create something that serves not just practical needs, but spiritual ones? A reminder that even in the deepest darkness, there are those who dedicate their lives to keeping the light burning for others. Hypatia understands this calling, this sacred responsibility to illuminate the path for those who come after. In her workshop, surrounded by astrolabes and armillary spheres, by treatises on conic sections, and commentaries on Ptolemy's Almagest, she tends her own kind of flame. Not the fire of the lighthouse keeper, but the fire of curiosity. The flame of a mind that refuses to accept easy answers when deeper truths await discovery. The breeze shifts slightly, carrying with it the faint sound of voices from the museum. That legendary institution where the greatest minds of the age gather to push the boundaries of human knowledge. Tonight, as every night, debates rage about the nature of the cosmos. Is the earth truly the center of all creation, as Ptolemy taught? Or might there be other possibilities, other ways of understanding our place in the vast tapestry of existence? These are not merely academic questions in Hypatia's world. They are explorations of the fundamental nature of reality itself. They are attempts to read the mind of the divine through careful observation and mathematical reasoning. They are acts of devotion as profound as any prayer. Watch now as a group of late-night scholars emerges from the library's columned halls, their animated conversation floating across the courtyard like music. They gesture toward the sky, pointing out constellations, tracing the path of planets, sharing the joy that comes from seeing the universe not as a collection of separate objects, but as a unified whole, a cosmic symphony in which every star plays its appointed part. This is the world that shaped Hypatia, a world where knowledge is treasured above gold, where questions are more valuable than answers, where the pursuit of truth is considered the highest calling a human being can embrace. It is a world balanced on the edge of transformation, though those who inhabit it cannot yet see the changes that are coming. For now, there is only this perfect moment, this crystalline night when the stars shine with unusual clarity, when the lighthouse beam sweeps across waters that have carried the ships of Alexander the Great and Cleopatra, when the very air seems charged with possibility. Breathe deeply. Let the salt-tinged breeze fill your lungs. Let yourself feel the weight of history that permeates every stone of this ancient city. Alexandria has been many things to many people, a center of learning, a hub of commerce, a melting pot of cultures. But tonight, it is something more. Tonight, it is a doorway into a story that will challenge everything you think you know about brilliance, about courage, about the price of living an authentic life in a world that often punishes those who dare to think differently. The Pharos beam sweeps past once more, and in its momentary illumination, you catch a glimpse of something that makes your heart quicken. A figure standing at an upper window in the scholarly quarter, silhouetted against the warm glow of oil lamps. She holds an astrolabe in her hands, adjusting its delicate mechanisms with the practiced ease of someone who has spent countless nights in communion with the stars. This is our first glimpse of Hypatia. Not yet the renowned teacher who will draw students from across the known world. Not yet the philosopher whose wisdom will be sought by governors and generals. Not yet the mathematician whose insights will influence the course of human thought for centuries to come. Tonight she is simply a young woman following her curiosity wherever it leads, trusting in the ancient promise that those who seek truth with sincere hearts will eventually find it. The lighthouse keeper adds fresh fuel to his fire, and the beacon flares brighter for a moment, casting long shadows across the harbor and illuminating the faces of late-night wanderers who have come to the water's edge to think, to dream, to wonder about their place in the grand scheme of things. You are one of those wanderers now, drawn by something you cannot quite name to this threshold between the known and the unknown, between the solid ground of accepted wisdom and the vast ocean of possibility that stretches beyond the horizon. The stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance, patient and constant, keeping their secrets while offering just enough light to guide the next step forward. And somewhere in the distance, carried on the night wind like a promise, comes the sound of a woman's voice, clear and confident, asking the kinds of questions that change the world. Are you ready to follow where those questions lead? The library's embrace. A young mind discovers knowledge. The morning sun filters through the tall columns of the great library, casting long shadows across marble floors worn smooth by countless footsteps. Here, in this sacred space of learning, the questions from the night before find their home among 10,000 scrolls and the minds brave enough to seek answers. You can almost hear the whisper of papyrus as scholars unfurl ancient texts, the soft scratch of reed pens capturing new thoughts, the gentle murmur of voices sharing discoveries that might reshape the world. This is where she comes each day, our young seeker of stars, where the vastness of human knowledge spreads before her like a feast, and every scroll holds the promise of understanding something previously unknowable. The Great Library of Alexandria is more than a building. It is the beating heart of the ancient world's intellect, drawing scholars from every corner of the Mediterranean like moths to flame. Its halls stretch further than most city blocks, its collections vast enough that a person could spend a lifetime reading and still discover new treasures on their final day. But for Hypatia, it is simply home. She moves through these corridors with the easy familiarity of someone who has grown up surrounded by learning. Her sandals make barely a sound against the polished stone as she navigates between towering shelves, each one carefully organized according to systems developed over centuries of careful curation. Mathematics here, philosophy there, astronomy claiming an entire wing where star charts and celestial calculations live alongside the instruments used to measure the heavens themselves. The key to understanding any subject, her father Theon often tells her, is not to memorize what others have written, but to question why they wrote it. What problem were they trying to solve? What assumption were they challenging? What new door were they trying to open? Today, like so many days before, she settles into her favorite alcove with a collection of scrolls that would intimidate most grown scholars. Euclid's geometric proofs, Apollonius's work on conic sections, Ptolemy's astronomical observations, complete with the intricate calculations that map the movements of planets across the sky. But intimidation is a foreign concept here. In this place, complexity becomes invitation. Difficulty transforms into adventure. She unrolls the first papyrus with reverent care, her fingers gentle against the ancient material. The scribe who copied these words lived generations ago, yet his careful lettering speaks across time as clearly as if he were sitting beside her. Knowledge, she has learned, is humanity's gift to itself. Passed from mind to mind, generation to generation, growing richer with each person who adds their own understanding to the great conversation. The morning passes in that particular way time moves when the mind is fully engaged. Minutes feel like seconds. Hours collapse into moments. The outside world fades until there is only the elegant logic of mathematical proof, the satisfying click of understanding when a complex concept finally reveals its underlying simplicity. Around her, the library hums with quiet activity. Scholars debate in hushed tones near the philosophy section. Scribes carefully copy texts to preserve them for future generations. Students like herself work through problems that have challenged human minds for centuries, each one discovering anew the joy of hard-won comprehension. This is what learning feels like when it's allowed to unfold naturally, not forced or rushed, but cultivated like a garden. Given time to take root, space to grow, and the patient attention of those who understand that true education is less about filling minds with facts and more about teaching them how to think. Hypatia! Her father's voice draws her attention from a particularly fascinating passage about the relationship between geometric forms and musical harmony. Come, there's something I want to show you. Theon leads her deeper into the library, past sections she rarely visits, toward chambers reserved for the most precious and fragile texts. Here, the air itself seems different, heavier with the weight of accumulated wisdom, thick with the reverence due to knowledge that has survived wars, floods, and the simple passage of time. These, he says, gesturing toward a collection of scrolls secured in specially designed cases, are some of the oldest mathematical texts in our collection, written by scholars whose names we no longer remember, but whose insights continue to illuminate new paths of understanding. She approaches carefully, aware that she is in the presence of something sacred. These aren't just documents, they are the fossilized thoughts of brilliant minds, preserved like pressed flowers between layers of papyrus and time. Your generation will face questions we cannot yet imagine, Theon continues, his voice soft but serious. The tools you need to answer those questions are here, not just in these specific texts, but in the way of thinking they represent. The willingness to look at the world with fresh eyes, the courage to question what everyone else accepts as obvious, the patience to work through problems that might take years to solve. As he speaks, late afternoon light slants through the high windows, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny stars in the golden air. The library feels alive around them, breathing with the accumulated wisdom of centuries, pulsing with the energy of minds engaged in humanity's greatest adventure, the quest to understand. This is what she will remember years later, when she stands before her own students trying to kindle in them the same love of learning that burns so brightly in her now. Not specific theorems or formulas, though those matter too, but this feeling, this sense of being part of something larger than herself, connected to a chain of inquiry that stretches back to the first human who looked at the stars and wondered what they were. The scrolls before her contain more than information. They hold the dreams of people who believed that understanding the world was worth dedicating their lives to, who trusted that future generations would carry their work forward, building on their foundations to reach heights they could barely imagine. Knowledge is not a possession to be hoarded, Theon says, as if reading her thoughts. It is a river that flows through us. We drink from it, add our own contributions to its waters, then pass it on to those who come after us. This is how human understanding grows. Not through the brilliance of isolated individuals, but through the patient collaboration of minds across time. She nods, though she's not sure she fully grasps the weight of what he's telling her. That will come later, when she faces her own choices about how to spend her life, when she must decide whether to keep her learning to herself or risk sharing it with a world that doesn't always welcome new ideas. For now, it's enough to be here, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of ages, feeling herself part of something eternal and beautiful and profoundly important. As evening approaches, the library begins to quiet. Scholars gather their materials and prepare to return to their homes and families. Lamps are lit in the sections where work continues after dark. The great building settles into its nighttime rhythm, like a vast mind preparing for sleep but never truly resting. But before the day ends completely, there is one more ritual to observe. Hypatia climbs the stairs to the library's highest tower, where instruments for observing the heavens wait for darkness to make their work possible. From here, Alexandria spreads below like a jewel set beside the dark Mediterranean. The harbor where her journey began the night before glimmers with reflected starlight. The city's lights twinkle like earthbound constellations, each one representing lives being lived, stories being written, dreams being pursued. And above it all, patient and eternal, the stars begin their nightly emergence. The same stars that guided ancient navigators, inspired countless poets, and continue to pose questions that challenge the greatest minds of every generation. Tomorrow she will return to the scrolls and the calculations, to the patient work of understanding that builds knowledge one insight at a time. But tonight, She simply stands in the growing darkness, feeling the vast universe wheel around her, knowing that she is exactly where she belongs. In the space between question and answer, where wonder lives, a Rutherford, Hypatia's study, tools of the astronomer. Years pass like the steady movement of constellations across the night sky. The young woman who once stood wide-eyed among her father's scrolls has grown into Alexandria's most respected astronomer, a scholar whose reputation draws students from across the Mediterranean world. Her study occupies the highest room in their house, a circular chamber with windows facing all 4 directions. Here, surrounded by the tools of celestial observation, Hypatia spends her nights mapping the heavens with the same patient devotion her ancestors brought to their sacred work. The room breathes with the weight of accumulated knowledge. Charts cover every wall, intricate drawings showing the paths of planets, the phases of the moon, the slow dance of stars through their eternal seasons. Some are her father's work, copied from the masters who came before. Others bear her own careful hand. Observations made night after night, season after season, building a picture of the cosmos, one measurement at a time. In the center of the room stands her most precious instrument, an astrolabe of gleaming bronze, its surface warm even in the cool night air. She lifts it now, feeling the satisfying weight in her palms. The metal has been polished smooth by countless hours of use, worn to a golden patina that catches the lamplight like captured starfire. The astrolabe is more than a tool. It is a map of the entire universe, compressed into a disk small enough to hold. Its face shows the projection of the celestial sphere, with the ecliptic marked in silver wire, and the major stars represented by tiny pearls set into the bronze. When she aligns it properly with the night sky, this small instrument can tell her the time, the date, the rising and setting of any star, even predict eclipses years in advance. Her fingers trace the familiar engravings, feeling the raised lines that mark the tropics and the celestial equator. The rete, the star map that rotates over the fixed plate, turns smoothly under her touch. Each star has its place, its name whispered in Greek and Latin and the older languages that came before. Sirius, the dog star; Vega, the falling eagle; Aldebaran, the follower. Names that carry the dreams and observations of generations. Near the eastern window sits her quadrant, a quarter circle of polished wood inlaid with ivory. Its arc is marked with precise degree measurements, each tiny line representing hours of careful calculation. She uses it to measure the altitude of celestial objects, holding it steady while she sights along its edge to track the moon's path or determine the exact moment when a star crosses the meridian. The wood is smooth olive, chosen for its stability and beauty. The grain runs in gentle waves across its surface, and the ivory inlays gleam like moonlight against the darker background. A plumb line hangs from the instrument's vertex, a simple weight on a cord that ensures her measurements remain true to the vertical, anchored to the earth, even as her attention soars among the stars. Against the northern wall stands her armillary sphere, a complex arrangement of bronze rings representing the great circles of the heavens. Each ring can rotate independently, allowing her to model the movements of sun, moon, and planets through their celestial paths. The metal sings softly when the rings brush against each other, a whispered music of the spheres that fills the quiet room. She adjusts one of the rings now, setting it to show tonight's configuration. The bronze is cool under her fingers, inscribed with constellation figures: the Great Bear, the Swan, the Crown. These are not mere decorations, but functional markers, helping her visualize the relationships between different parts of the sky. On her work table, scrolls lie partially unrolled, held flat by small weights of polished stone. Her calculations cover sheet after sheet of papyrus, columns of numbers tracking planetary positions, geometric diagrams exploring the relationships between celestial motions, tables predicting the phases of the moon for years to come. Her reed pens rest in a holder carved from ivory, their tips stained with the dark ink she mixes herself from oak galls and iron. Beside them, a small bronze compass for drawing perfect circles, its points worn smooth from constant use. Every tool has its place, its purpose, its role in the great work of understanding. The oil lamp flickers, casting dancing shadows across the charts and instruments. This is her sanctuary, a place where the chaos of the world below fades into the eternal order of the heavens. Here, surrounded by bronze and wood and carefully copied wisdom, she feels connected to something larger than herself. She moves to the southern window, where her largest instrument waits, a celestial globe of gleaming bronze, its surface covered with the constellations as seen from outside the celestial sphere. Each star cluster is rendered in exquisite detail. Orion the hunter with his belt of 3 bright stars, the Pleiades clustered like scattered jewels, the great river of Eridanus flowing across the southern sky. The globe rotates on its axis with perfect smoothness, balanced so precisely that the slightest touch sets it spinning. She can adjust it to show the sky for any date, any time, watching the constellations wheel overhead just as they do in the real heavens above Alexandria. Her fingertips trace the familiar patterns, feeling the slight raised lines that mark each constellation's boundary. This is the universe made tangible, something she can hold and turn and study, bringing the vast cosmos down to human scale without losing its wonder. The night air stirs through the open windows, carrying the scent of the harbor and the distant sound of waves. But here in her study, time moves differently. Here, she exists in the same eternal moment as Ptolemy and Hipparchus and all the astronomers who came before, united across the centuries by their shared desire to understand the dance of the heavens. Tomorrow will bring students and lectures, the practical work of teaching and the endless questions of those just beginning to glimpse the beauty of mathematical truth. But tonight belongs to the stars and the quiet satisfaction of instruments perfectly calibrated, charts carefully updated, knowledge slowly and patiently accumulated. In this room filled with bronze and wisdom, she is exactly who she was meant to be. Crafting the cosmos, the art of the astrolabe. The astrolabe resting in her hands tomorrow will not exist tonight, but the brass disc waiting on her workbench holds all the potential of the cosmos within its unmarked surface. Hypatia sets down her observation notes and moves toward the smaller table where her metalworking tools wait in careful arrangement. The brass catches the oil lamp's glow, warm and golden like captured sunlight. She has chosen this particular alloy herself, the copper lending warmth and workability, the tin adding strength and that distinctive pale gleam that will not tarnish quickly under Alexandria's salt air. The disc is perfectly round, cut with mathematical precision, its edges filed smooth as silk. She picks up the compass, its bronze points sharp enough to score the softest line. The center point finds its mark with the certainty of long practice. From this single point, all the heavens will unfold in careful circles. The ecliptic, the tropics, the celestial equator. Each line must be exact. Each measurement must honor the reality of the spinning cosmos above. The first circle emerges under her steady hand. The compass point whispers against the brass, leaving a hairline trace that catches the lamplight. Around and around, the perfect curve that will represent the boundary between earth and sky. Her breathing slows to match the rhythm of the work. Inhale as the compass sweeps the upper arc. Exhale as it completes the lower curve. Circle within circle begins to take shape, the climate zones where different latitudes experience their seasons. the paths of the wandering stars. Each ring requires its own calculation, its own careful measurement from the astronomical tables she has spent years perfecting. The brass grows warm under her fingers as she works. Now comes the delicate task of marking the degrees. 360 divisions around the outer rim, each one representing a single day's journey of the sun through its annual path. She has prepared a smaller compass for this work, its points filed to needle sharpness. The first mark, a tiny nick in the brass, barely visible but precisely placed. Then the next, and the next. The work requires a kind of meditation. Her mind holds the vast clockwork of the heavens, while her hands translate that cosmic machinery into marks small enough to fit in her palm. Each degree represents not just measurement, but meaning. The predictable return of seasons, the reliable rising of familiar constellations, the ordered beauty that underlies all apparent chaos. The sound of metal on metal creates its own rhythm, the soft scritch of the compass point, the gentle tap of the small hammer when deeper marks are needed, the whisper of the fine file smoothing any rough edges. These are the sounds of precision, of human skill meeting cosmic order. She pauses to check her work against the master astrolabe that has guided her studies for years. The spacing must be exact. Each mark must align with the mathematical reality it represents. Her teacher's voice echoes in her memory. The instrument is only as true as the hand that makes it, and the hand is only as true as the mind that guides it. The rete comes next. The intricate bronze web that will rotate above the base plate, carrying the brightest stars in their eternal dance. This requires different tools, finer work. She selects a thin stylus, its point polished to mirror brightness. The pattern must be cut away entirely, leaving only the essential framework that will hold each star in its proper place. Spica first, the brilliant blue-white star that marks the wheat sheaf in Virgo's hand. A tiny hole drilled with infinite care, positioned according to measurements taken over countless nights. The bronze curls away in delicate spirals as she works, each one catching the lamplight like golden thread. Arcturus next, the bear guard that follows the great bear across the northern sky. Then Aldebaran, the follower, forever chasing the Pleiades through their celestial meadow. Each star requires its own small perfection. A hole just large enough to let light through, positioned with mathematical exactness, labeled with the graceful letters she learned as a child. The work transforms the simple brass disc into something approaching art. The flowing curves that connect star to star create patterns of unexpected beauty. Practical necessity becomes aesthetic grace. The same mathematical principles that govern the heavens reveal themselves as sources of visual harmony. Her fingers begin to ache with the precision required. This is work that cannot be rushed, cannot be forced. Each mark must emerge from the perfect marriage of knowledge and skill, understanding and craft. The astrolabe taking shape under her hands will serve not just as a calculating device, but as a testament to human capability. Proof that mortal minds can comprehend and recreate the patterns of eternity. The oil in her lamp burns lower, the flame settling into a steady golden pool. But the work continues. Mark by mark, star by star, the cosmos shrinks to fit human hands while losing none of its grandeur. If anything, the intimate scale makes the wonder more immediate, more touchable. She thinks of the students who will hold this instrument someday. Their fingers will trace the paths her calculations have laid out. Their eyes will follow the star positions she is marking tonight. Through this small bronze disc, they will connect with the same celestial rhythms that have guided human understanding since the first astronomer looked up and wondered. The astrolabe is becoming itself, no longer raw brass but a bridge between earth and heaven. Each careful mark represents hours of observation, years of study, generations of accumulated wisdom. The ancient knowledge of Babylon and Egypt, refined by Greek mathematics, perfected by Alexandrian precision. In the steady lamplight surrounded by the soft sounds of metalwork, Hypatia continues her patient translation of infinity into bronze. Her hands shape not just an instrument, but a legacy, a way for human minds to hold the stars. Gazing at infinity, observing the stars. The finished astrolabe rests in her hands for a moment longer. Then Hypatia sets it carefully aside. Tonight she will use her eyes alone. The rooftop observatory awaits. Stone steps worn smooth by countless nights of ascent led upward, past the sheltered workshop, past the scrolls and instruments, into the open embrace of the Alexandrian sky. Here, on this flat expanse of stone and tile, the world falls away. The harbor lights twinkle far below like earthbound stars. The Mediterranean stretches eastward into darkness, its surface catching fragments of moonlight. But it is upward that her gaze naturally turns. Upward to the vast dome of night that has called to her since childhood. The air is cool against her skin. A gentle breeze carries the salt scent of the sea, mingled with the dry warmth still radiating from sun-baked stone. Alexandria settles into evening quiet around her. The distant murmur of voices from the streets below, the soft lap of waves against the harbor walls, the whisper of wind through the lighthouse's upper chambers. But these earthly sounds fade as her eyes adjust to the darkness, as the stars emerge in their full glory. First come the brightest, Sirius blazing white in the southern sky, Arcturus glowing golden overhead. Then the familiar patterns begin to resolve. The Great Bear wheeling slowly around the northern pole, Orion striding across the celestial sphere, his belt a perfect line of diamonds. She has studied these stars in scrolls and charts, calculated their positions, predicted their movements. But here, beneath the open sky, all that careful mathematics dissolves into wonder. Each point of light represents a sun, perhaps worlds beyond imagining. The ancient Babylonians saw gods and heroes written in these patterns. The Egyptians found their calendar in the rising of Sirius. The Greeks discovered geometry in the perfect circles of planetary motion. But what does she see? What speaks to her in this language of light? Hypatia settles onto the stone bench she has placed at the rooftop's center. From here, she can turn in any direction, can follow the great wheel of the heavens as it turns through the night. Her breathing slows, deepens, matches the eternal rhythm of the cosmos itself. To the east, the constellation of the twins is rising. Castor and Pollux, the bright stars that guide sailors across the Mediterranean. She traces their familiar pattern with her eyes, remembering the first time her father showed her how to find them, how to use their position to determine the hour of the night. Now she sees them not just as markers of time, but as distant suns burning across unimaginable gulfs of space. Light that began its journey years ago, traveling through the void to reach her eyes in this precise moment. She is seeing into the past, touching eternity. The thought should make her feel small, insignificant, a brief flicker of consciousness on a tiny world orbiting an ordinary star. But instead, she feels connected, part of something magnificent and vast. Her mind reaches outward, following that light back to its source. What worlds might circle those distant suns? What minds might be gazing back across the darkness, wondering about the small yellow star that holds her world in its embrace? The questions are too large for answers, but they fill her with a profound peace. A shooting star streaks across the northern sky, a brief trail of silver fire that appears and vanishes in heartbeats. The old stories say such lights are messages from the gods. Her mathematical training suggests burning fragments of celestial debris, but tonight she simply watches and marvels. The Great Bear has turned noticeably since she began her vigil. The pole star holds its steady position, while all the other lights wheel around it in their eternal dance. She has calculated the mathematics of this motion, understands the slow wobble of Earth's axis that will, over centuries, shift even that fixed point. But knowledge does not diminish wonder. If anything, it deepens it. To understand that the stars are distant suns makes them more magnificent, not less. To know that light itself has traveled unthinkable distances to reach her eyes makes each photon precious, a gift from the cosmos itself. The Milky Way stretches overhead like a river of light. The ancients called it the path of souls, the road that spirits travel to reach the realm of the gods. Through her instruments, she has glimpsed that this cloudy band resolves into countless individual stars, a vast wheel of suns, with their own world just one small part of something almost too large to comprehend. She lies back on the stone bench, cushioned by the soft fabric she keeps here for these long nights of observation. The entire sky spreads above her now, a dome of infinite depth pricked with 10,000 points of light. Her body grows still. Her breathing becomes barely perceptible, but her mind soars outward, riding beams of starlight to the edges of existence. This is why she studies, not for fame or recognition, not to prove herself in a world that questions whether women can truly understand the mysteries of nature. She studies because the universe calls to her, because in moments like this, the boundary between observer and observed dissolves entirely. She is the stars, and the stars are her. The cool stone beneath her back, the gentle wind stirring her hair, the vast wheel of the heavens turning overhead with mathematical precision, all of it part of one grand design, one cosmic dance in which every element, from the smallest grain of sand to the most distant star, plays its perfect part. Her eyes grow heavy, but she resists sleep. These hours of direct communion with the cosmos are too precious to waste. Dawn will come soon enough, bringing with it the demands of the everyday world, students to teach, instruments to calibrate, the endless work of translating celestial motion into human understanding. But for now, for these perfect hours of darkness, she simply watches and listens and allows herself to be held in the infinite embrace of night. Above her, the stars continue their ancient dance, indifferent to human concerns, yet somehow deeply connected to the consciousness that observes them. Light and mind meeting across the vast darkness, creating meaning in the space between. Mapping the heavens, drawing constellations. Morning light filters through the latticed windows of her study, casting geometric shadows across rolls of parchment spread like fallen leaves across her work table. Hypatia sits with perfect stillness, a reed pen poised above cream-colored vellum, her eyes moving between the celestial globe beside her and the emerging constellation taking shape beneath her careful hand. The night's observations must be captured, transformed from memory into something permanent, something that others can hold and study long after the stars have wheeled through their cycles. She dips her pen in ink mixed with powdered charcoal and a touch of ground lapis lazuli, creating a deep blue-black that mirrors the depths of night sky. Each dot she places represents a star, observed, measured, its position calculated with mathematical precision. But this is more than mere recording. This is translation, turning the language of light into the language of line and curve. Her hand moves with the confidence of years of practice. First, the brightest stars. Aldebaran in Taurus, marked with a slightly larger circle. Then the fainter ones, building the familiar pattern that shepherds and sailors have followed for countless generations. But Hypatia sees deeper patterns, relationships between stars that speak of cosmic harmony. The Great Bear emerges under her pen. 7 bright stars connected by the finest lines, their eternal dance around the pole star captured in elegant strokes. She pauses, studying the proportions. The distance between Dubi and Merak must be precise. Future astronomers will rely on these measurements. Beauty and accuracy, she whispers to herself, echoing her father's teaching. They are not opposites. They are partners in the search for truth. Around the edges of each constellation, she adds delicate notations in her careful script, coordinates in degrees and fractions, rising times for different seasons, the subtle variations she has observed over months of patient watching. Her handwriting flows like water, each letter formed with the same precision she brings to her calculations. The morning grows warmer, but she remains absorbed in her work. Orion takes shape on a fresh sheet, the hunter's belt rendered with 3 perfectly aligned dots, his sword hanging below in a cascade of smaller stars. She remembers the nebula she glimpsed there through her father's best viewing lens, a fuzzy patch of light that seemed to pulse with hidden fire. How to capture such mystery on parchment? She adds the faintest wash of diluted ink around those stars, suggesting depth, hinting at wonders that lie beyond the reach of casual observation. Art serving science, science inspiring art. Her fingers are stained with ink now, small crescents of blue-black beneath her nails like tiny new moons. The physical act of creation, of bringing order from the seeming chaos of scattered starlight, fills her with quiet satisfaction. Each chart becomes a bridge between the infinite and the intimate. She reaches for her ruler, a length of polished olive wood marked with precise gradations. The lines connecting star to star must be straight, clean, purposeful. No tremor of uncertainty can mar these guides that will help others navigate both earthly seas and the vast ocean of knowledge. Perseus appears next, the hero forever frozen in his moment of triumph, holding aloft the head of Medusa. The variable star Algol winks at her from the monster's eye, and she makes careful note of its changing brightness. Even in myth, she finds mathematical truth. The sun climbs higher, warming the parchment beneath her hands. Soon the household will stir. Students will arrive seeking guidance. The demands of teaching will call her back to the world of voices and questions. But for now, in this golden hour between night's observations and day's obligations, she creates. Each constellation she draws becomes a small act of preservation, capturing not just star positions, but humanity's eternal need to find patterns, meaning connection in the vast darkness above. Sharing wisdom, teaching in the museum. By midday, the corridors of the museum echo with the sound of sandaled feet, students arriving for Hypatia's afternoon lecture. They come from across the Mediterranean world, young men drawn by her reputation, carrying wax tablets and papyrus scrolls, their faces bright with anticipation. The lecture hall fills gradually, voices mixing in a dozen languages before settling into respectful Greek. Some students she has known for years, others arrive wide-eyed, having traveled from distant cities just to hear the woman who reads the stars like poetry. Hypatia enters carrying her celestial globe, the bronze sphere catching afternoon light streaming through high windows. Her presence transforms the room. Conversations fade to whispered reverence as she moves to the center, setting the globe on its wooden stand with practiced grace. Today we journey to the edge of understanding, she begins, her voice clear and warm, reaching every corner of the hall. We will trace the paths of planets, follow the ancient dance that has continued since before our grandfathers' grandfathers first looked up in wonder. Her fingers find the globe's surface, tracing constellation patterns etched in gleaming metal. See how Orion rises in winter's darkness, how his belt points towards Sirius, brightest of all stars. The ancients called him the hunter. But what do you see when you look upon these patterns? A young student raises his hand tentatively. A story, teacher, a way to remember. Exactly. Her smile illuminates the room. We are pattern seekers, story makers. The stars remain constant, but we find meaning in their arrangements. We create narratives that help us navigate both sea and season. She rotates the globe slowly, bronze continents and silver stars catching light. Watch how the celestial sphere turns. See how different stars become visible as Earth journeys around the sun. From Alexandria, we see Polaris steady in the north, but travel south to the source of the Nile, and new constellations reveal themselves. The students lean forward, some sketching diagrams, others simply absorbing her words. She moves among them now, the globe forgotten as her hands gesture toward the ceiling, painting invisible star maps in the air. Mathematics is the language of the cosmos, she continues, her voice taking on an almost musical quality. When we calculate planetary positions, when we predict eclipses, when we measure the Earth's circumference as Eratosthenes did centuries ago, we are having conversations with the universe itself. A student from Cyrenaica speaks up. Teacher, how do we know our calculations reflect truth rather than mere human invention? Hypatia pauses. Considering. Observation, she says finally. We test our theories against what we see. When our mathematics predicts an eclipse and the moon's shadow falls exactly where we calculated, when our star charts guide ships safely to harbor, then we know we have touched something real. But remember, her voice grows softer, more intimate. Knowledge is not possession. It is gift. What we learn here, what we discover through patient observation and careful calculation, belongs not to us alone, but to all who will come after. The afternoon light shifts, casting longer shadows across the hall. Students begin gathering their materials, but reluctantly, unwilling to break the spell of learning. For tomorrow, Hypatia announces, observe Venus in the evening sky. Note her position relative to the western horizon. We will discuss her 8-year cycle, how she traces a perfect pentagon in her celestial wanderings. As students file out, many approach with questions, seeking clarification, requesting additional readings, simply wanting to extend these moments of connection with cosmic mysteries. She responds to each with patience, recognizing in their eager faces her own younger self, hungry for understanding. The hall empties gradually, leaving only echoes of discussion and the lingering sense that something sacred has been shared. A legacy of light, reflections on the stars. Alone now in the vast hall, Hypatia moves slowly among the empty benches, her sandals whispering against marble floors that have witnessed countless such moments of learning and discovery. The afternoon light streams through high windows, casting geometric patterns across the space where knowledge has just been shared, where minds have just been opened to the infinite dance of celestial bodies above. She gathers her teaching materials with deliberate care, the star charts she has drawn by hand, the wooden models of planetary motion worn smooth by countless demonstrations, the brass instruments that have become extensions of her own understanding. Each item carries within it not just knowledge, but the accumulated wisdom of generations. The patient observations of Babylonian astronomers, the mathematical insights of Greek geometers, the careful recordings of Egyptian priests who watched the skies from temple rooftops. Moving toward the windows, she gazes out over Alexandria, this jewel of the ancient world where cultures meet and blend like currents in the harbor. The city spreads before her in the golden light of late afternoon, Markets bustling with merchants from distant lands, scholars walking in animated discussion, ships arriving with precious cargoes of books and ideas from across the known world. But her eyes are drawn upward, always upward, to the sky that will soon reveal its nightly treasury of stars. She knows that tonight, as every night, she will climb to her rooftop observatory, will align her instruments with practiced precision, will lose herself once more in the eternal rhythm of cosmic motion that has guided her life's work. The knowledge she shares, the discoveries she makes, the instruments she crafts, all of these are offerings to something greater than herself. They are contributions to the endless human quest to understand our place in the vast tapestry of existence, threads woven into a fabric that stretches backward to the first humans who looked up in wonder, and forward to generations yet unborn who will continue this sacred work. In the growing twilight, Alexandria begins its transformation. Torches flickering to life along the streets, oil lamps glowing warm in windows, the lighthouse beacon beginning its nightly watch over ships seeking safe harbor. The city settles into evening rhythms that have remained unchanged for centuries. Fishermen mending nets by lamplight, bakers preparing tomorrow's bread, mothers singing children to sleep with lullabies passed down through generations. And above it all, the first stars appear. Tentative at first, then with growing confidence as darkness deepens. Venus hangs like a jewel in the western sky. The constellation of the Swan spreads its wings across the celestial dome. The Great Bear begins its eternal circuit around the pole star that has guided countless travelers home. Hypatia knows that her own time is but a brief moment in this cosmic story, a single breath in the vast respiration of the universe. Yet she also knows that every observation she makes, every student she teaches, every instrument she perfects adds something precious to humanity's understanding, creates ripples that will spread outward through time like circles on still water. The harbor grows quiet now, ships rocking gently at anchor, their masts creating a forest of shadows against the star-filled sky. Night birds call softly from the palace gardens. The eternal sound of waves whispers against ancient stones. And overhead, the cosmos continues its majestic dance, indifferent to human concerns, yet somehow embracing all of human aspiration in its infinite, patient, luminous embrace. Tonight, as always, the stars will shine, and somewhere, someone will look up in wonder. And the great conversation between earth and sky will continue, as it has for millennia, as it will for millennia yet to come, carrying forward the light of knowledge and the eternal human desire to understand the beautiful mystery of our existence among the stars.